Hey y'all, it's me, Dree. So for the lesson today, I want to talk about why toxic love is so hard for people to recognize while they are inside of it. Because, well, toxic love doesn't usually feel toxic when it first enters your life. This is true across the board. And honestly, the fact that this exists this way is what makes toxic love so dangerous, really, because a lot of people stay inside these toxic connections for years, sometimes decades. And they stay inside of them without fully realizing the gravity of what it is that they're actually participating in. And that's, well, because toxic love rarely introduces itself as destruction. Think about it. Think back to your relationships, those toxic connections. How did they introduce themselves? Was it perhaps as fantasy, as chemistry, as passion, destiny, as finally being chosen, or even finally being seen? They come in and you finally feel like you're being understood. And all of that presents itself in a way that feels consuming. Because an experience that is that intense, people immediately assume the feelings that they have mean that this has to be real. Because why else would it be affecting them on this core of a level? And that is exactly why most people, they miss it. They miss it when it comes in. And their attention stays locked on it. It stays locked on how the connection feels, not on what is actually happening inside the dynamic itself. And those things are two completely different things. Because toxic love can feel incredible emotionally, but it feels incredible while simultaneously it destroys your nervous system underneath it all. And the reason this gets missed is because that fantasy presentation that they came with, that remains intact. You see, when toxic love approaches, it usually enters with Cinderella kind of energy, right? This is swept off your feet, desired, chosen, pursued, consumed, and it feels magical. Like the person just walked into your life and cracked your whole world wide open. They make you feel things in a way that you've never felt before. And a lot of times you think that they saved you completely. But a lot of the times, I have to say, that outer presentation, it holds for a very long time. And that's why people struggle to reconcile the truth when they're inside it, and even later on after it, because from the outside, the connection still looks like love. The texts are still there. The gestures are still there. The chemistry, that's there. And the passion, that's there too. Also, the pull is there. But what's not being realized is the intention that's operating underneath these extremely high energies the entire time. Because what it usually is what's not being realized is the manipulation, the inconsistency, the emotional control, most times self-serving motives, and hidden instability, the power imbalance, the emotional consumption. And meanwhile, during all this time, your nervous system is trying to process all of this reality that's beneath the fantasy layer, which creates internal confusion for the person receiving this toxic love, because the body starts receiving two completely different messages at the same time. One message coming from y'all is saying, this feels incredible. And the other part that is coming from your intuition is saying, something is wrong here. And when a person has been conditioned to associate emotional intensity with love, and that usually happens in childhood, well, when they've been conditioned that way, then they usually are going to trust the fantasy feeling before they trust the signal that their intuition is giving. And this is where the whole idea expands, because Cinderella energy, now, we all know that isn't real. It's fantasy. It's projection. It's idealism. But what toxic love actually resembles more closely, when you really get into it, I'd say that's more like Little Red Riding Hood energy. Don't you think? Because Little Red Riding Hood, she still enters strong too. Still intriguing, still emotionally engaging. She's still magnetic. But the lesson inside that story is completely different, because the lesson there is discernment. The lesson is, can you recognize the danger before fantasy overrides your instincts? Because if you know that story, the signs of danger almost appear immediately to Little Red Riding Hood. She approaches her grandma and she says, "What big eyes you have, grandmother. And what big teeth you have, grandmother." And what does that really mean? Well, I've said it many times. The body always sees first. The body always notices first. The nervous system always catches it. Something from the very start already feels off. But because the character in the story is still attached to the presentation, she stays in the interaction even while recognizing the inconsistencies of her grandmother. Right? And what I'm getting here is that this little Red Riding Hood energy and storyline, this is where a lot of people in today's society are living, inside toxic relationships. And they see pieces of the truth. They feel pieces of the truth. Their body responds to pieces of the truth. But it's that fantasy layer that keeps overriding their discernment. Because everybody wants the fairy tale to be real. I know that for sure. I'm sure everybody listening can relate to that in some way. But this becomes even harder when the connection contains intermittent reinforcement. Because when that happens, the nervous system starts chasing relief also. That's the good moments, the affection, the reassurance, and all the emotional highs that come with it. The moments where the wolf briefly puts the disguise back on. That's what they're all holding on to. And that cycle can become incredibly addictive emotionally. Not because the connection is healthy, but because the body gets trapped between anticipation and relief. And after enough repetition, people just stop asking, is this healthy? And they start asking, how do I get the good version of this person back? And that's the trap. You're stuck on how they entered, and you think that's who they are. And you're not realizing that who they showed themselves to be after the high, that's what you need to pay attention to, because this is the trap. It's the nervous system is no longer relating to reality clearly. It's relating to the fantasy version it became emotionally attached to. And I think this is what so many people are starting to finally arrive at now. And that's that some of the strongest connections they've ever experienced, they weren't powerful because they were aligned. They were powerful because the nervous system was activated the entire time. And once a person truly learns how to separate fantasy from discernment, well, that's when everything changes, because now they stop measuring connection by intensity alone. Now they start asking, does this connection allow me to stay connected to myself? And can my body actually rest here? They start asking, do I feel emotionally safe? That's a big one. Or on the other side, do I feel emotionally consumed? That is draining. But asking these questions completely change what a person becomes available for. Because healthy love, that does not require you to override your instincts in order to stay inside of it. Healthy love, that doesn't make you compromise your nervous system either. And healthy love doesn't require that you sell yourself on a false reality altogether. So that's what I got for y'all today. If this one is landing for you and you're starting to realize that some of the strongest connections in your life may have been fantasy overriding your discernment, then like my message, leave me a comment and tell me about it. And subscribe to my channel. Share my message with someone who's finally learning how to trust what their body has been trying to say all along. Because awareness of this, it changes your experience entirely. And remember, where there's love, there's light. I'll see you guys again soon.